Well, hello everybody. Larry Young here again with another segment of OLaMan Living Life with Purity. And today I want to wish everyone a happy and healthy new year. Hope everyone is prosperous this year, a lot more than we've been the last several years. There's been a lot of pain to go around. These woke expressions that have infiltrated our dialogue across our mainstream media and our culture that they've invaded and our institutions. It seems now with the common sense type of thinking coming back and taking the top line of the discussions, I think that the woke agenda and the woke ideology and the woke signals are being, I think, finally brought down off of the mantles where many people have been keeping these things the last several years. And they're, I think, beginning to have a little bit of more deliberate introspection right now as to what they were a part of, what has happened, and what may be the lesson from this for them individually and us as a society and a culture and a country and a neighbor. One of the things that I've been concerned about and have been watching erode throughout this time has been the emphasis on experience and competence in our decision making, in our public officials, in our educational system, our lawmakers, everyone who has a point of origin in our thinking. We've been letting people without experience come in and take over the discussion. These people may be coming in with thought-provoking ideas, but they don't have any experience to show how these things work or how these things can play out over time. These things are just not tested and true. There goes with that then is there's been a real shutdown in accountability for people who've made these bad decisions and demanded that people follow them and take over the bureaucracy and legislate from an unelected position or an employee situation and taking over like they are the group leader, if you will. We see this a lot of times in our classrooms. We see this a lot of time in our boardrooms. There's one guy in particular, he sits on the board of Costco, and this guy's he's a real piece of work. He used to be the head of the Bill and Linda Gates Foundation. I don't know if he still is, but he is pushing for even stronger advances on DEI, which while everyone else is saying, hey, look, this stuff doesn't work, this stuff is unproductive, this stuff is costly, this stuff goes against the concept of building a better and brighter future. What it really does is DEI serves to stagnate the growth and compromise the product that comes out. And we've been seeing this. So be very, very careful about the choices you make in your large purchases here over the next couple years until this thing gets worked out. Because you may get somebody who was inexperienced, incompetent, and unaccountable that built your product you're buying. And this is not good. This is just not good. I'm not saying it's across the board. I'm saying we have elements of this going on, and we need to watch out for it. We need to, kind of drill down on these things when we see them and try to help eliminate it so we can get back to competency and trust and these things that go with being a good citizen and a good neighbor, a good family member, all those above. So, what happens in the absence of, the experience and competence and, experience and competence, those things take time to generate. You don't just come out of school and take a job or a position with a corporation and all of a sudden they make you a group leader or a manager or something like this. These things take time to show your ability to lead, to function, to think on your own, to creatively problem solve, to not always have to go to your boss every time a decision has to be made as to, we got to buy milk, should I get regular or chocolate? These are not complicated decisions. When it comes to milk, get what they'll drink. If anyone's had to deal with a kid, they won't drink white milk. Chocolate milk's not such a bad option most of the times, as long as you dial back on the sugar someplace else. But experience and competence, these things take time to generate and to mature in an individual. Whereas accountability is something that's a constant right from the get-go. We hold, and we should hold, our children accountable. Who broke the lamp? Well, I don't know. Well, somebody did. It didn't break itself. So we got to find out who broke the lamp. These things. You don't have to, put the kid in leg irons or anything like that, but you do need to teach that accountability matters. And when we make mistakes or something happens, it's always best to own up to it and say, look, yeah, I did that. I'm sorry. What can I do to fix it? Mommy, Daddy, I'm really, sorry. What can I do? These types of things. These build really good character in our children. And this is what you want to do, is not raise children. You want to raise adults. These kids don't need your help being a child. They're perfectly good at it on their own. They don't need your help. So what happens in the absence of, the quest for experience and competence and keeping people accountable for their actions as you go through? What happens in the absence of these things is we develop inconsistencies in our models and our products and the way we go about life. And these aren't just like inconsistencies for how people do things in the northeast part of the country as opposed to the southwest corner of the country. It's far more than that. And one example I can give you that needs to have this consistent product and delivery across the spectrum and across all the states, across all the areas of the country, is McDonald's Corporation. I don't know what the rules are now, but it used to be that you could not own or buy into a McDonald's franchise unless you went to McDonald's University up in Des Plaines, Illinois. And they had a beautiful facility there where new operators would come in and they would learn the McDonald's program. They would learn about being able to turn out a consistent product. Every time that somebody ordered a hamburger or a cheeseburger in their method, there was always 2 pickles, the onions, cheese if that was on the menu, the patty, and the bun. That was the constant delivery. So anytime you went to a McDonald's, whether it was in Massachusetts or New Mexico, you got the same damn hamburger. It tasted the same. There was consistency. So there wasn't this questionable thought in the customer's mind. They always knew if they had a taste for that McDonald's hamburger and milkshake, they knew that they could go into any Golden Arches and they could get that satiate, that taste, immediately what they were looking for on a consistent basis. Same thing with like tennis shoes or anything like that. They all have to be the same. You can't deliver a different kind of Converse sneaker to Georgia versus Washington State, not unless it's emblemed or something like that special, but they have to have consistency, and you have to have make sure everything's within a certain tolerance so that people who are buying things or people who are working with things aren't given a surprise. So what happens in the absence of experience and competence and accountability is this inconsistency that happens. But it's also what happens when we take out the experience portion and the competence portion especially, and then add in the accountability, of course, is we see this all across like our police forces, our educational system, our federal offices, any place that's more of like a government type of employee situation rather than a private sector situation. These people who have these sort of government jobs, it's very hard to eliminate them from the workforce once they get their first paycheck. They're very hard to eliminate. Unions protect them, and what the unions will protect against at all costs is the experience of competence and accountability. They always say, well, it's not their fault, they're new, you got to give them time, blah, blah, blah. You can't expect perfection. Yeah, you can. I think you can expect perfection, especially when you have such a limited scope of work that needs to be done. I think you can be expert in this certain set of things that go on. Now, with police situations and possibly with educators, there's going to be an art that goes with that they have to be able to artfully digest the new set of facts that come to them with this new child or student or this person on the street that the police may come into. They have to take in a whole different set of factors to try to make an instant decision on something. But many times the instant decision that comes down is one of the absolute worst case scenario, not necessarily what is the most probable situation. So sometimes when you get people who have low grade self-esteem, it happens everywhere, but they will many times try to flex their muscles a little bit inordinately to try to impress their power upon somebody else. It happens in policing, it happens in education, and many times federal offices will shut you down. They won't participate with you. They'll come up with a new regulation or something like that isn't a law, but they'll say, well, in my estimation, the way I read this particular rule or whatever, this is what I'm going to do. And they just make stuff up out of thin air. And people get hurt. And when somebody protests against this, they try to file a complaint. And there's really no accountability that comes down the line. Many times these people who did this infraction will maybe get a slap on the wrist, get called into maybe an embarrassing moment at HR, but then 6 months later, they get graduated to a higher position at higher pay, and all is kind of forgotten off their record. This isn't how it's supposed to work. It wouldn't happen if you were a ball player playing for a team and they were paying you, and all of a sudden, as a baseball player, you stop hitting the ball. You're going to go up and get a walk each time? I don't think so. This goes back to the movie, I think it was called Moneyball. And I think it was Brad Pitt asked one of his people in the front office, he says, well, if the guy's such a good hitter, how come he doesn't hit good? And this is a really good question. People have labeled something as, this is really good, they're the best. Well, how come it doesn't work? Well, it will. He's a good hitter, or this worked over in Newcastle, it'll work here too. Well, how do you know? You don't. The productivity is not there. You can't make such strong assertions based upon, a lack of history in these things. So when a guy stops hitting and gets into a situation like that, in the baseball realm, they usually get moved out. Their locker's empty one day and they don't have a job anymore, or they get sent off to another team who will trade them something of a resource for this, because they don't know that this person can't hit because they have been labeled as a good hitter. So a lot of times companies or teams will dump dead product onto another team, and a lot of times you never hear about this. The guy is a player to be named later. 6 weeks later, he's back running his dad's gas station in Newcastle, Indiana again. Not a bad thing to do, but he's not playing ball anymore. So this also happens all too often with our priests and our preachers who come out and they get, if they're, I don't know what they do in the Protestant churches or the schools, they give them accreditation, they graduate, they get a degree in theology and all this stuff according to the Protestant faith, that's all fine. Priests, they need a 4-year degree and 2 years of seminary, and then they get ordained and out they go. And typically at about the age of about 25, maybe 26 if they're a late bloomer. Have you talked to a 25-year-old lately? Some are very, very impressive. Some of them are very, very immature. And some of these people, men and women, don't have basic life skills because they haven't had it forced upon them, but they haven't been accountable. They've been given a pass. They've been pushed on through. We got people graduating high school that can't even read. How can that be? I couldn't have gotten out of 3rd grade if I couldn't read. How come somebody can graduate high school and not be able to read and write a cogent paragraph? This is terrible. Well, we get these 25-year-olds coming out, and they're being assigned as priests and pastors. And when they get assigned and get a job, they end up taking on, some credibility in their churches and their parishes, if that be the case. And they're allegedly to have assumed that they have all these capabilities because somebody at the seminary said, he passed all the tests and checked all the boxes and things like that. The guy can't even wash his own underwear, doesn't know how to run a washing machine because somebody's been doing it for him all this time. Now you're sending him out here and you want him to not only run a rectory and to help take care of things in a parish and to give people counseling for life issues. They haven't even begun to live. So things have changed. Our younger people aren't maturing in the way that they used to. And I don't want to be like, in my day, we did it like that, because dang it, these kids, they don't know nothing. Well, that's not the case. It's just pretty darn evident that you have incapable younger people coming out in some situations. Sometimes you get these amazing young men and women. I know one guy used to work for me, decided to not go to college. He didn't have the interest in that. He wanted to go to work. He liked building things. He was kind of creative in that aspect. He loved the finished product. He got a great sense of satisfaction in the work process. And I told him, I said, what do you want to do? And he says, I don't know. I said, do you want to go to school? He says, well, I'd like to go play ball. And I said, well, that's fun. I can't turn you down on that. Well, he went down and he tried playing ball at the university, but the ball was fine. The football was good. But the student life and all like that was going on there was a lot of distractions. And he really didn't find that his heart was being listened to in that regard. So he went back home and took a job with his father working in construction. And that started off a little rocky and change because fathers and sons working together sometimes can be a little difficult. But the young man within 2 years bought his own house. So at the age of 20 years old, he's buying his own house. So he's way ahead of the rest of the game of the rest of his classmates. And a lot of his other classmates, their toughest decision is standing in front of the beer cooler trying to decide which beer to buy, whether they should get a 6-pack, a 12-pack, or a case. And that is not a good executive decision type of training that we need to be fostering. This other young man I talked about, he's, dealing with county and local, dealing with sewer issues. He's dealing with all these things and running a household and being a good neighbor and, getting his life and his finances and everything in together. He knows that he's going to make some improvements to his home. So he better go out and find some more work or work some extra hours, whatever it is that takes care of that. Go beyond. His experience now is teaching him that you can go out and get whatever it is you want. Just work for it. So the young man, there are exceptions, and I applaud him, and I applaud others who reach up that way too. But I also want everyone to basically, let's not give too much credit where it's not due. Let people earn it again. Quit giving away so many damn soccer trophies. Let's get back to saying, quality counts, excellence matters, and we're going to hold you accountable for this. Not everyone's going to get a trophy today. With the inexperienced priests and pastors coming out, and, we have enough confusion going on in the world right now. One of the thoughts I had in discussing this with a priest friend of mine, I said, what would be the problem if the Catholic Church was to not make these seminary candidates priests right away? And he says, what do you mean? I said, what if they were to serve as a deacon for 3 to 5 years? Limit their capacity there too. They can kind of come in and learn and then see if they still have this capability outside of the sanitized walls of the colony of the seminary, if you will, but out in the real world, see how they're functioning, if they're able to make that adjustment before you make them into a priest. And he's just like, that's too, game changing. I said, maybe the game needs to be changed. They change the rules to Monopoly and things like this. Why not change the rules here? This has been going on for centuries. I mean, my gosh, you can be a priest candidate in a different part of the world, and as I understand, you could become a priest in as little as a year because their stringent quality controls are much less, and they want more priests out there so that they can satisfy the needs of their church members who might be all over the place. As things grow, they need more bodies out there. And I don't know if that's the right solution to things, is to just put somebody into this role who hasn't been proven and tested. Just throwing it out there. I don't think it's a bad thing to consider. I'd like to hear a comment on that. But, I hear lots of stories from viewers out there of problems going on in their own churches and parishes. They got somebody comes in and they misuse the funds. I can point to a number of situations like that where young priests or pastors, if you will, have misused the church coffers, fully expecting that no one would say anything because no one's ever stopped them because they haven't been held accountable. And here, all of a sudden, $40,000 or $50,000 goes missing, and it's now wrapped up in new patio furniture and a bathroom remodel that happened at a rectory or something like this. It wasn't approved and wasn't gone through channels. Somebody just decided that it was gross and needed to be changed. That's not the way you do things. So it may be time to move the goalposts a little bit due to the change in our culture. This isn't a bad thing. This is something that's gone on throughout the centuries and throughout the growth of the church and religious, depending on whatever church or faith you follow. Everyone goes through changes. I mean, my gosh, the Baptists hold elections, as to what it is they're going to believe for the next, group of years or whatever. They're willing to change their faith and all like that. Catholic Church has too. I mean, my gosh, they've made all kinds of screwed up errors, over the centuries, and I'll talk about that coming up here. But we've got situations, with some of these priests out there who aren't held accountable at a younger age in their career, and they grow older and they start getting bolder and they start getting even more aggressive with the misuses and the challenges to the parishioners, and misusing funds and getting into arguments and cussing people out and running people out of the parish, things like that. I'm going to be talking about a situation with a priest who had aspirations of starting a new religious order here in Rome City about a decade ago. He ended up getting run out of town by the local bishop, that being Kevin Rhodes. And but the bishop, instead of shutting this guy down, he did what they do so often in the police and the education and the federal system, is he just moved him to a different department and shoved him out of state to someplace else where people didn't know him. And he continued to go on with his, destructive force this guy is, and he's still going. And as I understand it now, he's actually finally been sued in a lawsuit here for upwards of $5 million. Who's going to pay the $5 million if and when this guy is found guilty? So these people, they run around unaccountable. They don't think that there's any problem. As they say, what, me? I'm a priest. No, what, me? Oh, I'm a cop. No, what, me? Oh, I'm a teacher. I'm an educator. Well, we need experience, we need competence, and we need accountability. And I don't think those are three things that are too hard to expect out of the situation that we're in. And as we have this opportunity now to awake from this wokeness, as a lot of people wanted to call it, I think that we have an opportunity now to put these levels of expectation back into our decision-making paradigms here. So we're going to get into this a bit more, but I needed to get this off my chest here today. I want you to think about it. I would love to hear your thoughts on things and areas where you see that there's problems in our, not only our culture, our church and our systems, things like this. These are all worthy to talk about. We don't have to incriminate anybody. We don't have to, ask for their head on a platter, like St. John the Baptist here. So what we do need, though, is to come up with a set of directions and a plan that works to help us all live a life of purity that we so deserve and can cherish and share with all of our friends and family and loved ones all around us, even those that we don't love. It's okay. And it's a good thing to live a life of purity, doing your best work all the time, always giving it your best effort. You're worth it. We're worth it. God is worth it. God expects it of you. Go back to the old parable of the servants with the talents. When the master was leaving, he gives one 10, another one 5, another one 3, another one 1. And what did they all do with their talents? Well, some excelled, some became cowards, and the cowards were not benefited. They were called out for what they were, and they were dismissed. But the others were say, hey, there's something here, I can work with it. Here, I'm going to give you some more. Here, I'm going to give you some more. I'm going to make you in charge. These are the types of things. This is how you find out where the cream is and what's rising to the top. So we need to get back to merit. We need to get back to being capable. And we need to get back to being proud of our work. In the meantime, I love you, and I'll be back.